and this Freedom session. We've got stable Wi-Fi, so we're good to go. And today I'm really excited to introduce you guys to seasoned entrepreneurs giving back to the business community. Meet the men who have overcome every obstacle. These adventurers, entrepreneurs, and philanthropists have much to teach businesses about responsibility, success, and the bravery that serves as a moment when everything is on the line. Join us as we share raw and inspiring stories that help businesses improve their lives. I'd like to introduce the three men here. First of all, Nigel Bennett is the founder of Aqua Group and author of Take That Leap. Todd Palmer is a six-time Inc. 5000 CEO and president and business coach. And Andy Buyting, who's a certified scaling up business coach and founder of and CEO of the Tulip Media Group. Gentlemen, welcome to the show today.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Barry.
I'm super grateful to have you here. And this is actually my first time having three guests in one time. Cool. So I'm feeling great today.
We get that a lot.
Yeah,
we do.
So before we dive into kind of, I guess, how the three CEOs came about, I just want to take a quick moment to welcome all the guests who are watching us live on the different platforms, on social, from across the world. Welcome to the show. Can you do two things for me? First thing, make sure you hit the like button just to let us know that you are there. Rafi from my team is across all the different platforms, feeding your questions, comments through to here, which leads me to the second ask, and that is ask any questions, anything you want to share throughout the episode so we can make it as interactive and tailored to you as possible. So guys, how did the three CEOs come about?
I think it's a question for Andy.
Andy,
yeah, I'll start us off. I don't know if it's because I have the biggest mouth or what it is, but
yeah, that's what it is.
That's what it is. Okay, thanks. So the three of us have known each other for probably, we're coming on to 17, 18 years type of thing. And we all met up. We all took part in a program in Boston called the Birthing of Giants. Vern Harnish was putting it on, part of EO and MIT. And we all met up there, and we all continued our class. It was a 3-year program. Our class and a couple of other classes continued with an alumni group called the Gathering of Titans. And we've all been a member of that for a long time.
16, so 17 years. Yeah.
Yeah, we gather at an MIT campus in Boston for a week a year for learning and sharing and supporting one another. And that's how we've gotten to know each other.
Wow. So what's the process behind the three CEOs? Like, how do you guys come together to really assist business owners these days?
Yeah, what we were doing is we've been classmates for so long, and I've got a bit of gray hair, so I'm kind of an elder now. And I chatted with these two guys from my class, Todd and Andy, and we really, really felt that it was kind of our time to start giving back to the entrepreneurial community around the globe. So what we did is we set it up so we could go and physically speak to entrepreneurs organization chapters around the globe, right? Starting in Canada and the United States, and then go from there. And then COVID hit. And so what we did is we've been doing it online. So we've been talking to entrepreneurs organization chapters throughout North America and London. We did Kuala Lumpur about a month ago, and then also podcasts like yourself. So we're basically sharing our lessons from the edge, things that we've all been smacked, and how do we bring ourselves out of that and thrive. Hey, Todd. Right, Todd.
I'd love to talk about that a little bit. I'm not sure how much you guys know about our podcast, The Comeback Game, but we started a couple of years ago because I was seeing this kind of boom in the marketplace on social where everyone was sharing their highlight reels. And there was almost this narrative that, like if you hire the right coach, you resolve all your problems and life will be beautiful and amazing. You never experience problems again. And it's just bullshit. You guys know as well as I do. But I also noticed something within inside myself, and that was that, like, I knew that I had those days where I'm like, this is the best day in the world. Like maybe the day that I made my first sale or, had a child or something like that. But I knew I had those days, but I couldn't really remember those days. Yet the days that I could remember were the days that I faced the biggest of adversities and challenges in my business career, because those were the days that shaped who I am today. Those were the days that really determined who I am as a character, as a man, as a partner, as a father, as a business owner. So I'm curious to know, like, I'd love you guys to share, like, what have been the biggest challenge or adversity that you guys individually have overcome in your history and in time of being a business owner?
Well, it's ironic that I'm the next up in the rotation, because I think one of my story is pretty gruesome and pretty horrible. So 10 years into my journey as an entrepreneur, I thought I had a lot of things figured out, and I got detached from my business. And in that process, I hired other people. I hired the wrong people, and I stopped paying attention. So as the entrepreneur, it's my responsibility. And I know as Andy and I coach people, we often point out to them, it's your responsibility to be the steward of your organization. But I was such a bad steward of my ship. I might as well have been the captain of the Titanic. And we got $600,000 in debt, 2 months away from running out of all of our money. I was going to lose my house. I was a single parent at the time. And you talk about the negatives you remember. Well, my negatives were meeting as a committee, and I called it the itty bitty shitty committee. And it was telling me how much I sucked. My imposter syndrome was screaming at me to the point where I nearly gave up. But in my last minute, I went out and hired a coach, and he helped me turn the business around. He taught me some financial literacy. I was able to explain to my son that we're not going to file for bankruptcy, that we are going to find our way out of this. And he was 11 at the time, looking at me like I'm a crazy human being. And long story short, I redid the organization. I fired everybody in one day, started over. And in that process came up with a way to hire for DNA, not for resume. And over the next 7 to 8 years, we paid off all the debt and made the Inc. 5000 6 times as one of the fastest growing companies in America. So that was a pretty crappy day, September 9th, 2006.
Yeah. And I guess just to kind of follow on from that, like, what were some of the core lessons you've learned now looking back at that? Like first and foremost, like, kudos to you for sticking in and coming through it. And secondly, like, for the example that you set for your son as well, like instilling that in him at 11 years old is incredible.
Todd, tell the story about your son. You got to tell
so I've told the story.
Impression.
This is one of Andy's favorite stories, and that makes Andy one of my favorite people. So my son is now 29. He's a CPA accountant, and I figured, he would just never want to become an entrepreneur. So he graduates college, and he said, I want to go on a trip with my dad to reconnect. And now that I'm through university, let's go to Machu Picchu and go hiking in Peru. And I know Nigel and other people in our group had been over there, like, awesome, this is gonna be so much fun. And we're trekking up the hill, and I'm the oldest guy going up the hill that day, and I'm feeling my age. And he starts talking to me, and he says, now that you've kind of done your entrepreneurial journey, tell me about your coaching practice. And I'm telling you a little bit about that. He goes, like, you've got to make sure you tell everybody why you didn't file for bankruptcy. And I don't really remember it. And he stops me, and he's like, that moment changed my life. He goes, because I told him, I said, we don't quit anything. We're Palmers. We don't quit on things. And we don't give up until the very last minute. And we do everything we possibly can. We turn over every rock and every stone to we can look at ourselves in the mirror and say, we did our very best. And I said to him, his name was Tyler. I said, at that point, when you were 11, I had not done my very best. I had not dealt with my imposter syndrome. I had not leaned through that uncomfortable part. And long story short, he's like, that changed my life. When I wanted to quit college, I thought of that story. When I wanted to give up on my first job, I thought of that story. I thought, if my dad can, have 600,000 reasons to quit, just because I don't like my boss on this day isn't a good reason for me to quit. Just because I'm not doing well in this class isn't a good enough reason for me to quit. And it's just carried forward so much. I had dinner with him tonight, told him I was going to do this. And I told him, hey, if I get a chance, I'm going to tell that story. So I got to thank my friends Nigel and Andy for teeing that story up. It's one of my absolute favorites.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. And I guess a message or invitation to the parents out there, like, just realize how much your kids are watching you, whether you believe it or not right now. They're watching you. They're watching your every movement. They're watching how you show up in life. And we have a responsibility as parents, not just for our own lives, but to set that example that we wish to create for our kids as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think, when you talk to guys like Nigel and Andy, they both got great parenting stories. I know, Nigel took his family literally around the world once he got through his doorknob effect story about how he just hated going into his company every day.
Yeah. Who's next then? Are we going to go to Andy, or are we going to go
Andy?
to
Let's go to Andy.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So, you talk about the comeback, and, we all faced adversity, and like Nigel was saying, we've gone through difficult times. We've gone through recessions, we've lived through them, and, we're here to share with others going through tough times that, you too can get through it. And for me, it was in the last recession in 2008, 2009, I was growing I was in the home and garden retail business and scaling the business quickly. We were passing 10 million in sales with 125 employees. And then the recession hit, and out of the blue, I get a call from my bank. And my bank manager says, Andy, with everything going on in the US right now with the banking industry, the bank has not changed their lending practices, but we have downgraded the risk rating of your industry. And since 1/3 of your risk rating is tied to your industry risk rating, that means, your risk rating has gone down by 1 point. And I said, well, what does that mean? She said, well, it means you no longer qualify for the loans that you have. And we had just made a massive expansion in that business. And I said, well, bottom line, what does it mean? She said, the bank's going to call everything you have with us. So within 2 weeks, registered letters came into the lawyer's office. They called everything, and we had multiple retail developments. So we had real estate, we had operating loans, we had receivable loans, we had, we were fairly highly leveraged. And these letters came in, and we put everything in, we were hyper focused on growth, and we were going to grow our way out of this, right? As an entrepreneur, you're going to grow your way out of any problem that you may come across. And I did that. And we did some real estate deals. We did some sales and leasebacks, divested some holdings, and we bought ourselves about 18 months worth of life. So we held on for about 1.5 years. And it was about that time when, I just couldn't, it was gaining on us. We couldn't outrun it. We couldn't get ahead of it. So the way I put it to my team is that I said, we've been outrunning this pit bull for the last 18 months, and we're not getting away from it. In fact, it's gaining on us. So what we're doing is we're essentially going to stop in our tracks. We're going to turn around. We're going to face this. And we may not come out of the other end. Best case scenario, we come out, we restructure everything. But worst case scenario, this could end badly. But here's what I need everyone to do. And everyone was hyper-focused on what they needed to do. So it was great to really align everybody. You talk about prioritizing. We were prioritized. We knew what needed to be done. And so we went through bankruptcy protection, tried to do the restructuring, got most of it done, but the one key component we did not get done, which was a new banking deal. And that was the biggest one. And we just couldn't pull it off. And we got together, the lawyers, the receivers, everybody was there, and basically told them that we could not pull this together, that we had the business kind of segregated in two components, that one, we were just going to let it go. We basically told them, do what you need to do. And in 2 days, they had seized all the assets there. The other one, we had made an offer to buy all that back, all the original business, to buy all the assets back, the real estate, everything back. And it was interesting because, they foreclosed on one half of the business right away. And then the other half, we were negotiating back and forth, and we basically offered them 100 cents on the dollar for what was owed against that business, that part of the business. And I get a call one Tuesday morning, and it was the bank's receiver that I unfortunately had gotten to know all too well at this point. He said, if you want to tell your staff, if you want to tell your employees, you can tell them right now that we're showing up in 30 minutes and taking everything. And that was the reality. So they walked in the front door. They literally, I couldn't believe it. I was like, there's a key right here, but they had to do the dramatic effect, put the chains in the front door, close the whole place down. Everything was gone that day. And that was a very, very low moment for me, for sure, because it's not what we expected at all. And, it was a couple of weeks or a few days later, maybe a week later, I was meeting a mentor of mine for a coffee. And I said, this guy I'd known for a long time. We met for a coffee, talked the whole thing through. And I remember there was a couple of memorable events that day. One is he told me something that I never, ever forgot. He said, you know what, Andy? He said, I'm not worried about you. So what do you mean? And he said, you're an entrepreneur. You've always been an entrepreneur. And by definition, being an entrepreneur means that you will figure it out. You will find a way to put one foot in front of the other, and you'll make this work. And he said, the way I look at it is that you were really good in a really bad industry. Why don't you go and be good in a good industry? And I never, ever forgot those words, that being an entrepreneur means it's the most secure job in the world because you will figure it out. The unfortunate thing is I left that so one of the things that happens with Canadian bankruptcy law is that when you go bankrupt, anything that you personally guaranteed, you get filed lawsuits. So I was getting lawsuits from the banks, from leasing companies, from different financial institutions. I was getting lawsuits from contractors, getting lawsuits from anybody that I owed money to. And I had no choice but to file personal bankruptcy, because it was, over a period of 2 weeks, I had over $6 million in lawsuits sitting on the kitchen counter. And when my wife is asking, when are these lawyers going to stop showing up at the front door during dinner hour, which is when they always want to come by. So I had no choice but to file personal bankruptcy. And when I left that meeting with my mentor, I've told the story before, where I walked out and I was in such a rush to get there. I parked illegally, and I had a parking boot on my car. And I called up the number that they gave to take this boot off, and it was going to cost $130 to take off. And I remember looking at my bank balance. I had $195 in my personal bank account. And that was the lowest of the low for my financial situation. Yeah. So paid the guy off, but then they started to rebuild, right? And it was never going to allow that to happen to me again. I learned that there's always opportunities. You don't have to go all in on the next new one. Like if this opportunity doesn't work out, there's a lot of other opportunities down the road. So there's always new opportunities. I'm a big believer in divesting, like having different revenue streams. Right now, I do real estate development, coaching, and I have Tulip Media. And, so there's 3 different revenue streams. If one goes down, there's not an issue like it used to be. Mm. And, learned a lot of lessons through that, for sure. Yeah. And just stick-to-itiveness, like what Todd talks about, just sticking with it and seeing it through and making it work.
Yeah. I really like what you shared there, Andy. The advice from mentor is that you were really good in a bad industry. And I see that a lot, these accident entrepreneurs that kind of end up in business, they're actually quite smart business owners, but they're in just the wrong fit for them and wonder why they can't get ahead. But then also, I meet a lot of business owners that aren't very smart, that aren't very good business owners, but they're just in the right niche and they've got this business. They don't even know how they're doing $1 million a month. They're like, I don't even know how I got here. They couldn't tell you how they got there. I had an interesting interview with Gino Wickman a couple of days ago, and he's launched his new book, The Entrepreneurial Leap, which he's got an assessment that helps people to identify, should they be working B2B, B2C? Should it be in product businesses or service businesses? And should it be, high ticket, low volume, or high volume, low ticket, which again starts to take some of the guessing game out of where we should be playing the game. But experiences like that really harden us, right? And really allow us to I guess, make different decisions. But, sometimes it's that pig-headedness that we have as entrepreneurs that prevent us from leaving the business and going somewhere else that might be an easy option because we want to make this work.
Yeah. And it's hard because it was a family business for me too. I never really truly enjoyed it as much as my father would have when he started it. It was kind of the business I got. I always passionate about business, but that was the business I got. It was never one that I chose personally, which I find interesting too. Yeah.
I love that. So Nigel, then,
so it's really interesting because, Andy, I say this, we've got a lot of commonalities there because I was in a family business for actually 10 years. Right out of high school, I was working for my father's environmental mapping company, and it took me to 10 different countries around the world. But after that 10th year, I was in Egypt, and my father got arrested and thrown in jail. And I basically had to escape out of the country and then work from London to help get him out. He got out after about 6 months. It was really horrific. But what I realized was the tough part was that there was some ethical stuff that was going on and it didn't jive with me. And my sister was working for our company too. So I basically came home after he was released, and I grabbed my sister and we left and we formed our own our own company called AquaGuard Spill Response. And what we do is we design and manufacture equipment for responding to oil spills, marine oil spills around the world. Oh. And but then again, we were in this little tiny company. We had a little shingle over our head, and we did have some customers because I traveled a lot, but we didn't really have a lot of products and all this. So I lived for years after that, designing equipment and skimming systems. But as Todd said, I call it the doorknob effect. So I was living like a lot of entrepreneurs. I would get up in the morning and I would get in the shower, and I would shower and I would be thinking, okay, can we make payroll this week? Can we hire anybody? Do I have to lay people off? And it was every morning in the shower like that. I'd go to work, I'd reach for the doorknob, and the doorknob would be vibrating, because I knew as soon as I stepped into my office, it was going to be total chaos and like a bee's nest. Nigel, I need this. So I lived like that for about 20 years. And a buddy of mine was a football player, an American football player, big 300-pound guy. And he had joined the Young Entrepreneurs Organization, it was called at the time. It's called the Entrepreneurs Organization now. And he saw what I was going through. And he literally came up to me, he grabbed me by the scruff of the neck, and he said, "You're coming with me to a meeting." And I'm like, no, I don't have time for any of this bullshit. You know, I've got 3 little kids. I've got a business that's, you know, I can barely survive. I don't have time to hang out with a bunch of pompous millionaire, you know, type guys, which that's what I thought everybody was. The business owners are all multimillionaires, which wasn't true. So I ended up joining the Entrepreneurs Organization, which took me to MIT, where I met Andy and Todd and all these guys. And, but I was living in chaos. I was still in chaos. And I know you mentioned something about a coach earlier. And I'd had a coach that helped me break away from my father's company. And then I had just hired a coach before I went to MIT. And I'm sitting, I had the same thing that Todd said, this itty bitty shitty thing going around in my head. I don't belong here with all these smart people, because I got ADD, I'm dyslexic, and I'm driving up to MIT and I'm almost ready to vomit because I feel that I just don't belong here. And I get into the class, there's 75 entrepreneurs, and I sit in the back. And Vern Harnish stands up at the front and he says, "Hi, you know, I'm Vern Harnish, I'm your facilitator." And I'm sitting there all quiet. And he said, "How many of you guys out there, how many of the 75 of you have a coach?" And, you know, I thought, oh, these guys are smart. So I put my hand up, like with my head down. And he said, only 3 of you? Only 3 of you guys have coaches. And this was 17 years ago. And I thought, oh, wow, I've got a coach. I thought everybody had coaches. And he said, "Let me tell you, every successful person," he used Michael Dell, Bill Gates, and Steve Jobs as examples. He says, "have one or multiple coaches." And so I'd had this coach, and I remember when I met him, he said, "Nigel, if somebody came up to you and offered you something for your business to take it off your hands right now, what would that be?" And I said, $1. just like that, $1, because I just wanted my freedom back. I wanted my life back. I'd lived in absolute chaos for so many years. So I'm one of the fortunate ones. I know there's good coaches and bad coaches. I'm one of the very fortunate ones. I worked very hard for 10 years with my coach, and we created an asteroid belt. We knocked out all the little asteroids and worked our way through everything. And I found what I was doing is I wanted my freedom back from my business so much. I was parachuting in C-suite leaders. I was grabbing a CEO from a competitor. I'd call him CEO. Then it didn't work. 3 years goes, and I hired another one. I called him a general manager, and that didn't work. So then I called this other guy a managing director. I switched around. Nothing worked. And I kept letting these guys go. All the while, I did not realize, I was too stubborn to realize that we were organically growing people inside the business. And now my partner now is a guy that's been with me since he was 17 years old, started sweeping the floor in the business, worked his all the way up through sales and marketing and finance. And he's 40, I'm 58. And what I was able to do in 2012, I was able to, with the help of my coach, I was able to set the business up to run without me. And I was able to take a year off, and I traveled with my family. And I was paranoid for the first 3 months that the business was going to implode. But the longer I stayed away, and I was in Bali where you are right now, I was surfing. We did the endless summer. We're Canadian surfers. We're not that great, but we love to do it. And we traveled the world and we surfed, right? And as the months went by, I'd call, 3 times a week to my office. By the 5th month, I was calling like once a month, checking in with the office. I got back, my business was there. It was the best thing that I had ever done. And I spent all that time with my family. And And so what I also found is I had a chat with my my football friend, because he saw when I was young, I spent most of my time in Southeast Asia trying to get this business going, and I never saw my young kids. And he said, Nigel, no business no business crisis is worth losing your family over. And that really resonated with me. And so I retweaked everything and made sure that I spent as much time as I could with my kids when I was in town and at their football matches and their ice hockey and whatnot. And now they're all in their mid-20s, and we surf together, and we're super close. And yeah. So I can't remember what the point I was going to make here. I kind of went off track, but I hope you got something out of that. Yeah.
Look, incredible stories, incredible insights into the adversities and challenges you guys have been through. Just ask those that are watching us live or on replay today, welcome. So grateful that you're here. Please post your comments and questions below. We'll get them answered. There's a few coming in now. I'll get to in a second. Before I do, though, I guess, and I'm sure you guys agree, like, business doesn't have to be that hard. Like, we've all got those moments where things have been overwhelming, or we've had decisions to make that we prolonged making and haven't made. We've procrastinated. We've all experienced imposter syndrome, no doubt. But business doesn't actually have to be that hard. I think what makes it hard is the fact that our ego, our stubbornness, prevents us from going out and seeking help of people that have been there and done that. I don't mean some fly-by-night coach who's just completed some certification. Like kudos to them for wanting to be a coach. But I mean, going and finding help of someone who's been there, who's got the track record of, growing their own businesses and growing other people's businesses. Because at the end of the day, like anything in life, it's a strategy. Like if you want to lose weight, go and seek a mentor that has lost weight and kept weight off and helped other people do the same thing. If you want to grow your finances, go and speak to someone who not just is a financial planner, but someone who actually has a track record of growing their own finances and finances for their clients. And business is the same. And I think, looking back at myself, like I was just way too stubborn. Like when I started my entrepreneurial journey, part of what allowed me to be an entrepreneur was that pig-headed determination and that stubbornness. But that was also my greatest Achilles heel. That was also the thing that prevented me from getting where I am now, like 10 years ago, because I was so goddamn stubborn and wasn't willing to invest the time or the money to seek professional help to help me grow my business.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think we've all suffered from that. I know that, I know you mentioned Gino Wickman was on your show. Gino's from Detroit, like I am, and his program has been transformative, just like Vern's program with the Scaling Up guys. And for me, the biggest bottleneck with any client that I coach, it's always the CEO. It's always the leader. The bottleneck's at the top of the bottle. It was me, as Barry just mentioned. It was him. And I had a client, for example, that was struggling so badly with making decisions around the most important thing of any business, in my opinion, and it's people. Yeah. And he had two leaders who were just not executing, and he had that for years. He got rid of it. Eventually, we leaned through the uncomfortable. He made some tough choices. His revenue grew 70%. His profits grew 500%, and now he works 3.5 days a week. So not only does he have a more profitable entity, a growing entity, he's now working when he wants to work, doing the work he wants to do. So once he got out of his pride and ego, he was able to put that aside. He was able to make the transformative changes that were required.
Yeah, I had the same thing in my business. I had this ego. It was my baby. I started it. I parachuted all these guys in, but when they were in there, I was looking over and checking on them. And then when I have this other guy coming up, I had that same problem. But now it's like, I've been able to remove myself, and your ego takes a bit of a punch with that. But I'm not needed. The business is done 10 times better without me than with me. And I lie when I say I spend about half a day a week with the business. I don't.
He doesn't.
Yeah. It's really interesting because it was a journey that I recently went through. Like, we've helped clients for a long time to build businesses that work without them. And it was last year, I'd said to my partner at the time, I was like, I'm feeling really incongruent. Like, we provide this offering to our clients, we're very good at it, but yet I'm still working the business because I love it. And I was like they love their businesses too. So I'm going to take myself through the journey I've taken them through. And the interesting thing was, is I knew I would hit this point where my ego and my sense of identity would get annihilated, which was why, Nigel, I moved to Bali and took up surfing. Like, I needed a distraction so I didn't sabotage that exiting of my business and jump back in. And so I moved to Bali, started to learn to surf, play guitar, and write a book, which were three things that were so far outside my comfort zone. But see, I honestly believe that we never, ever have business problems. We only ever have personal problems that get expressed through our business. Right? Like, I honestly believe that. And if we can work on us as the business owner first.
Yeah,
And
it's always
everybody
inside
needs that
out.
support.
Oh, go ahead,
Yeah.
Andy.
I was just gonna say everybody needs that support. You know, we talk to a lot of different groups, and it comes around to a lot of the same themes. Is that, you know, you can't do life alone. You can't do business alone. You know, if I was having heart problems, I wouldn't watch a YouTube video and try to do heart surgery on myself. Like, no. In business is, you know, I know business is not heart surgery, but it's still very important. It provides your living. You know, you wouldn't get legal advice from your brother, unless he was a lawyer, of course, but you know, you wouldn't get legal advice from your best friend who claims he knows what you're dealing with. You go to the experts, and nobody can do it on their own. There's, you know, and that's the one thing I think the sooner people realize that, you know, the best business leaders, the best leaders in general, are the ones who have this insatiable curiosity. They want to learn, they want to grow. And because you know, none of us know it all. None of us do. You know, we all need to learn. We all need to have someone in our corner helping us with our blind spots, helping us, holding us accountable, because quite often, like you know, until I joined EO, you know, it's like the lone wolf. I read a few books, and, you know, I knew what I need to do, and I just need to plow forward. But you can't do life alone.
Yeah, I think those are key tips that you mentioned there, Andy, is that for all of us, I'd say for all of us, that joining EO was incredible for how many years we've been in. And then in a focus group, or we call it a forum group inside EO, has been absolutely incredible. And then with the coaching, so it's that constant evolution. It's that constant reaching out, asking for help, realizing we do need help. And it's from the peer groups to the coaching to it's all there. And it's a never ending cycle. You know, you got to keep evolving.
Yeah, on that is commit to the process. Like we meet clients who jump in, and in a month or 2 months they don't get the results that they expect, and it's like, I'm going to leave and find someone else. And it's like, the reality is us or you guys, it's like, we've got proven track record. But you know, you've got to understand that it's taken you 5 years or 10 years to put your business into a hole, or to create what you've created. You can't expect to hire a coach for a month or 2 months and have the whole entire thing turned over overnight. Like, stick to the process. Like, give it 6 months, give it 12 months, give it 2 years, if you truly want to create that business that can work without you.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, you know, to both of Andy and Nigel's points, you know, an entrepreneur alone is an entrepreneur at risk. And you know, if you're looking for a coach, people ask often, like, well, how do you vet a coach? How do you select a coach? And I always say, you know, there's, you know, I like Andy's analogy of the heart surgeon. I don't necessarily want a heart surgeon who's posing in front of a yacht with 3 bikini, you know, Instagram models that he doesn't know and who are going to leave him as soon as the shoot's over. I want the guy who's been there, done that, and survived it. Whether it's tough, like some of the tough conversations we're talking about, whether it's a recession, you know, how have you pulled out? You know, there's nothing worse than calling up a coach saying, "Hey, I don't think I'm going to make payroll." He goes, "Okay, well, let me look in my book." And on page 7, they said, call a bank. Okay, I already did that. You know, between the 4 of us, I'm sure we can say, here are 17 different ways to go find some money by tomorrow so you can make payroll on Friday.
Yeah, I love that. We've got time for a couple of quick questions here. So Brett from Sydney, amazing story from the guys so far. Was burnout ever an issue? What were their own steps to address it if it was?
Burnout was definitely an issue for all of us.
You know, you do need to take care of yourself. And I'll give a shout out to Nigel here, but for myself, I've gotten into this habit of meditation, actually, just mindfulness and meditation. Never believed in it, never did it. And Nigel, my good friend, kept doing it, kept saying how it's been helpful for him. So it's been 2 years now, and I can't imagine not doing it. But regardless, you need the downtime. You know, when I was going through the hard times, my kids were 1 year old and a 4-year-old. And at the end of every day, no matter how bad things got, I'd come home and I'd call it floor time. Like, how much floor time did I have? Because I'd sit on the floor and I'd just be with them. Yeah. And I couldn't be thinking about work, but you need that.
Yeah, I found the breaks as well. Like, that's the one thing that I've been pretty consistent on for the past 30 years is that we started our little business, and I would take off with my wife when we go to the Himalayas and go trekking, or we were climbers too. So we did a lot of rock climbing. We'd take off for 2 weeks, and that was the place where it was the quiet. And that's the place where I could process all the problems that were going on. I would come back totally refreshed. And it was amazing what would happen after that.
Yes.
But I got into that rhythm. I call it, I honestly call this whole thing not a life balance, but a life rhythm. You got to be in that rhythm and the flow. And it's just when you're in that space in the sweet spot, the magic happens. And but we do need, like Andy said, we do need that separation from our business just to regenerate. And it's amazing what it does. It's amazing.
And it's counterintuitive. It's like, oh, I've got so much stuff to do, but it's like actually taking time out and honoring you first and honoring the balance that's required for you as a CEO. Again, allows those things like to reprioritize, to get new ideas, new inspiration, and you're a ton more productive as well. But you've got to kind of force yourself to be pulled away from the shackles.
Like Barry, you right now, you're in Bali, right? And you're going to go, you've been surfing. How good do you feel after that? Like you're totally regenerated, right? Yeah,
absolutely.
Say no more. Yeah.
Not working a lot at the moment, but surfing still helps to regenerate. Another question here from Trent for Sydney. Working on my own boutique digital agency, I can imagine Andy's obsession to innovate Tulip Media. Sorry if this sounds insensitive, but question for all three. If there is no client fit / compatibility, can they say no to some clients during this time of crisis?
So I'm really clear. For my coaching and speaking business, I'm a retired CEO. I've done my hero's journey. I want to help someone else go on their hero's journey. I just want to guide them. And for me, if someone's not coachable, then I'm not for them. And part of being coachable, as Andy referenced earlier, is being held massively accountable, because that's where they go off the track. That's where I went off the track. And my coach that I had for 6 years held my butt accountable to the point of like daily check-ins when I was at my worst. And if someone's not willing to be held accountable, and there's a process I put them through to discover that, and if they're not willing to do it, then they're not for me. And that's okay, because they can go be coached by someone else who's possibly a better fit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it sounds like the person asking the question has a media agency or some sort of a digital marketing agency similar to what we do, maybe. And I'm about to have one of these conversations next week. The person shall be remain unnamed, but I look at it, with our marketing company, we are like, in a lot of ways, like a personal trainer or like a business coach, or, if you want to get fit, you can go to the gym, you can do it yourself, or you hire a trainer who will hold you accountable, will make sure you're making progress and so on. And on the marketing side, I have a client that is not getting their side of the work done. So we're not able to deliver our stuff. And I'm going to have this conversation next week with them and saying, you know what, unless you change, like, we're not going to bill you for November, because we keep chasing you. And it's not like we're not getting the work done. We're not doing you any good. Yeah. And it's a comfort thing for him. He wants us on the retainer, but we're not comfortable doing that because we're not doing anything for them. So I think even during this time of COVID, I would ask yourself, if you have a wrong fit with a client, how much time are you spending, extra time and resources and cycles and thought, brain power, on trying to make it work with this client that maybe is opening up their checkbook, but they're not, fulfilling their end of the bargain. They're not moving, they're not moving forward. They're not good for your business. You may not be good for theirs. How much resources are you wasting there? And what could you do if you spent those resources on a client that actually appreciated what you did?
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Love that.
That you could grow with. I think that's really important. And there's something very, very, very freeing to being able to say no to a client and say, I'm sorry, we're just not the right fit for you.
Love it.
I think any startup, you can't do that at the beginning. Nobody ever does. But boy, when you get to that point, because remember 3-4 years in, us saying, you know what, this person wanted to come back and she was the worst client. And I said, I'm sorry, but we're just not the right fit. And 6 months later, she came back again. She said, I really want to do this other project. Will you guys take me on? I said, no, I'm sorry. And
you gotta love these Canadians saying how sorry they are that you suck at doing your job. They're so
Sorry.
nice.
They're nice about it, but we still say,
don't go away, man. Go away.
Anything to add to that, Nigel?
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same thing as Andy that, when we first started out, when I first broke off and formed AquaGuard, we were doing everything for everybody. We were just doing any contract, low margin, high volume, just garbage contracts. And we just take anything that we could and put up with a lot of shit. Yeah. And then it came to the point, it was like, we can't do this anymore, guys. We're burning ourselves out. And so we refocused the whole company to high margin, lower volume, but high margin offshore stuff. And then we picked and chose our clients, and life's been a heck of a lot easier than trying to do everything for everybody. It just didn't work for us.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like really good question from Trent, and great summary.
Yeah. Great question. Yeah.
I'd like to add something from a slightly different approach. Like I believe that the universe, that life only ever says yes. And of course, when we start out a business, like we do have to take on board, we typically take on board all work for everyone, and we just say yes. But often when we say yes to others, we say no to us and say no to what's right for us. And, one thing that we really, I guess, teach our clients around is saying no to those people, because I think that when you say no to clients, you start to kind of almost condition the universe and what shows up for you. So when you say no to those clients, they almost stop coming. But one really magical thing happens is when you say no to those clients, it's like the next day, your ideal client walks in the door. But it's almost like your ideal client can't walk in the door while you're still saying yes to all those people that aren't a good fit for you.
True.
Yeah. And there is a thing with business growth, like through different, the evolution of any business from startup to scale up, is there's an inflection point. At the beginning, you are saying yes to everything. But if you say yes to everything, you'll grow to maybe $1 million company and you'll plateau there. That'll be it. In order for you to scale, to rise above it, you got to start saying no. Almost the rule of thumb I remember hearing one time, I don't remember where I heard it, but I always say, you got to say no 20 times, to every yes that you do say, every opportunity you say yes to. And it's when you start to focus on what are you going to be known for? What is your high, whether it's high volume or high margin, what is the right business for you, and be hyper-focused on that and start saying no to others so that, like you said, it is the universe. The universe is, I always believe that the universe is kind and you get what you deserve most of the time. There'll be ups and downs for sure. But if you're focusing on the right business for you, it'll find its way, it'll work out. It'll work out. And it allows you to scale then. You simplify
like you're saying, Andy, is like once you get into that sweet spot, the snowball just grows and grows and grows, and it's fun, and it becomes fun, but it's getting into that sweet spot, and you nailed it, I think, Barry, with what you were saying there. The universe opens up and crazy stuff. It's amazing what happens.
You just got to lean into valuing yourself.
You do
above any and all others, and also realize too. Like I remember when I first started coaching, I was like $180 a session, and I would just have people that weren't showing up, but I wasn't valuing myself. And I'm like, but if I start charging more, my current clients can't afford me. And I remember a mentor said to me that it's like the ecosystem of the ocean. There's always like smaller fish to be eaten, and there's always larger fish to eat those smaller fish. It's your choice to decide where you want to play in the food chain. They will still get served. They will still get looked after. It just won't be by you. If you want to play that level, play that level. But if you want to become a whale or a shark, that's your choice as well. Just make the decision consciously.
Yes.
Guys, man, amazing conversation. I've really enjoyed connecting with you. Thank you so much to everyone who's tuned in live today or watched the replay. I'd love to know, what was your top takeaway? Put in the comments and let us know. Quick question. How can they get in contact with you guys if they're wanting to connect more? What's the best way?
On our website, 3CEOs3.com. So 3CEOs.com has all of our individual contact information, as well as, you can reach out, if somebody is interested in having us come and speak on a podcast or something like that. But our individual information is there, and that's the easiest way to remember it. And if there's something going out, we can include that. We can include it with that as well. But
fantastic. We'll put a link below this, wherever you're watching on social as well. Guys, thank you so much for your time, your generosity, your stories, and just really appreciate everything you just said. I think there was quite a comprehensive look into overcoming challenge and adversity and building great businesses. And again, thank you to everyone who's watched us live today as well. Thanks, guys.